Before you overthink, before logic interferes, I want you to do something different. In a moment, you're going to see 4 doors. No explanations. No clues. No right or wrong answer. Just 4 doors. And your task is simple: choose one. Fast. The door you feel pulled toward without knowing why. Because the truth is, the choice you make in the next few seconds isn't random. It reflects something deeper. Something you don't usually show people. According to Jungian psychology, the parts of ourselves we ignore, suppress, or hide don't disappear, they wait. They shape our relationships, our loneliness, our habits, even the way we react when no one is watching. One of these doors represents a feeling your shadow has been holding on to. And once you see what it means, you might understand yourself in a way you never have before. So don't analyze. Don't try to be smart. Just notice which door pulls you in. Your shadow is already choosing. If you chose door 1, you didn't choose it by accident. This door represents emotional restraint, the feeling of holding yourself together even when everything inside feels chaotic. On the outside, you appear composed, rational, dependable. People may even describe you as strong. But according to Carl Jung, when we consistently choose control, it often hides a shadow rooted in suppressed vulnerability. Door 1 reflects someone who learned early that expressing too much emotion wasn't safe, productive, or welcomed. So instead of reacting, you analyze. Instead of collapsing, you endure. Instead of asking for help, you adapt. The shadow behind this door is not weakness, it is unprocessed emotion waiting for acknowledgement. You may pride yourself on independence, yet secretly feel that no one truly sees the full weight you carry. Jung believed that what we suppress does not disappear, it manifests in subtle ways: tension in relationships, emotional distance, or an unexplained sense of loneliness even when surrounded by others. If this door pulled you in, it suggests that your psyche values stability, but at a cost. The hidden lesson here is not to abandon strength, but to redefine it. True psychological integration happens when control and vulnerability coexist. When you allow yourself to feel without losing structure. When you admit exhaustion without labeling it failure. Many who choose this door are high-functioning, reliable, and socially respected, yet internally fatigued from always being the stable one. The shadow is not accusing you. It is inviting you. Inviting you to ask, what emotion have I postponed dealing with? What conversation have I avoided because I feared appearing fragile? Door 1 reveals a powerful archetype, the self-controlled protector, but it also warns that constant suppression can harden into isolation. The growth path here is subtle, controlled openness. Calculated honesty. Letting one person see behind the armor. Because the moment you integrate what you've been holding back, you don't become weaker. You become whole. If you chose door 2, there is something important you need to understand about yourself. This door represents emotional intensity, the kind most people don't see at first. On the surface, you may appear calm, even easygoing. But internally, your emotional world runs deep. According to Carl Jung, when someone is drawn to symbols of depth and mystery, it often reflects a psyche that feels more than it reveals. Door 2 is connected to suppressed longing, not weakness, not drama, but unexpressed emotional needs that were never fully validated. You might be the person who listens more than speaks, who understands others quickly, who senses shifts in tone, mood, and energy. But here's the shadow: you rarely feel that same depth of understanding reflected back to you. Over time, this creates a quiet pattern, giving more than receiving, caring more than being cared for. Jung believed that when emotional needs are consistently minimized, they retreat into the unconscious and transform into subtle resentment or chronic loneliness. Not loud. Not obvious. But persistent. If door 2 pulled you in, it suggests you crave emotional authenticity, yet you hesitate to demand it. You adapt. You tolerate. You rationalize. And because you are self-aware, you convince yourself you don't need much. But your shadow knows better. It knows you want depth. You want intensity. You want connection that feels real, not surface level. The lesson of door 2 is integration. Instead of suppressing emotional desire, you acknowledge it. Instead of fearing that asking for more makes you too much, you recognize that emotional standards are not flaws. They are boundaries. Many who choose this door struggle in relationships because they settle for people who cannot meet their emotional depth. The transformation begins when you stop dimming yourself to maintain comfort. When you stop pretending indifference. Door 2 reveals an archetype Jung often described, the deep feeler who hides their fire beneath composure. But the truth is this, when you stop suppressing your emotional intensity, you don't become overwhelming. You become aligned. And alignment changes everything. If you chose door 3, your decision points towards something most people spend years trying to understand about themselves. This door represents internal conflict, the tension between who you are and who you believe you're supposed to be. According to Carl Jung, when we feel drawn to symbols of transition or uncertainty, it often reflects a divided self. Not confusion in the ordinary sense, but a psychological split between expectation and instinct. Door 3 is connected to identity pressure. You likely function well in society. You meet responsibilities. You adapt to different environments. But internally, there's a quiet question that returns again and again, is this really me? The shadow here is not failure. It is suppressed authenticity. At some point, you learned that certain parts of you were inconvenient, too ambitious, too sensitive, too unconventional, too different. So you adjusted. You refined yourself into something more acceptable. More predictable. More manageable. Jung warned that when authenticity is repeatedly compromised, the unconscious begins to signal through restlessness, dissatisfaction, or sudden urges to change everything. If door 3 pulled you in, it suggests that your psyche is tired of performing. Tired of maintaining roles. Tired of negotiating your identity to preserve stability. But here's the important part, this doesn't mean you need to abandon your life. It means you need to examine where you've been editing yourself. The lesson of door 3 is integration through honesty. Not dramatic reinvention, but subtle reclamation. Where do you silence opinions to avoid friction? Where do you shrink goals to appear realistic? Where do you pretend contentment? The shadow attached to this door carries potential energy. When suppressed authenticity resurfaces, it often feels disruptive. But Jung believed this disruption is necessary for individuation, the process of becoming whole. Many who choose door 3 experience periods of sudden clarity followed by hesitation. You see what needs to change. You just question whether you're allowed to change it. This door suggests you are. The discomfort you feel is not instability. It's misalignment. And when you stop negotiating with parts of yourself that demand expression, something shifts. Not externally at first, but internally. You stop feeling divided. And when the division dissolves, so does the quiet exhaustion you've been carrying. If you chose door 4, your choice reflects something powerful, and rarely acknowledged. This door represents emotional detachment as a defense mechanism. Not coldness. Not indifference. But strategic distance. According to Carl Jung, when someone is repeatedly drawn to symbols of isolation or finality, it often reveals a shadow shaped by self-protection. Door 4 is connected to the fear of dependency, not because you don't value connection, but because you learned that relying too deeply on others can lead to disappointment. At some point, consciously or not, you decided that self-sufficiency feels safer than vulnerability. You pride yourself on independence. You handle your own problems. You rarely ask for reassurance. But here's the hidden layer, emotional detachment can become a silent barrier. The more you convince yourself you don't need much from others, the easier it becomes to justify emotional distance. Jung believed that when we over-identify with strength, the unconscious compensates by amplifying suppressed needs. This may show up as sudden waves of emptiness, unexplained frustration in relationships, or a pattern of pulling away when closeness intensifies. If door 4 pulled you in, it suggests you are highly self-regulated, but possibly at the cost of intimacy. You might test people unconsciously. You observe whether they pursue you, whether they prove consistency. And if they don't, you detach quickly, telling yourself it never mattered. But the shadow attached to this door carries an important truth. Detachment is often a shield protecting an unmet desire for stable connection. The lesson here is not to abandon independence. It is to question whether emotional distance is always strength, or sometimes fear disguised as control. Many who choose door 4 believe they are simply rational. Yet beneath that rationality is a quiet longing for reliability. For someone who stays. Jung described this as the integration of opposites, autonomy and attachment coexisting without threat. The moment you allow controlled vulnerability instead of total withdrawal, you don't lose power. You redefine it. Door 4 reveals a self-reliant archetype, but it also asks a final question: are you protecting your peace, or protecting yourself from being truly known? Now step back for a moment. It doesn't matter which door you chose. What matters is this: none of these interpretations were random. Each door represents a different strategy your mind uses to navigate the world: control, depth, identity, or detachment. And according to Carl Jung, the shadow is not your enemy. It is the part of you that was never fully integrated. The traits you suppress. The emotions you postpone. The needs you rationalize away. The roles you overplay. The distance you maintain. Every choice in this test points to adaptation, and adaptation is intelligent. But here's the deeper reflection: adaptation can slowly become limitation if it goes unquestioned. The strongest people can suppress too much. The deepest feelers can settle for too little. The adaptable can forget who they are. The independent can isolate themselves without noticing. None of this makes you flawed. It makes you human. The real purpose of confronting your shadow is not self-criticism, it's awareness. Because awareness creates choice. And choice creates change. If something resonated strongly, that reaction matters. If something made you slightly uncomfortable, that matters even more. Growth doesn't begin when we find new information. It begins when we recognize old patterns. So ask yourself one honest question: what part of me have I been managing instead of understanding? Your shadow isn't waiting to sabotage you. It's waiting to be acknowledged. And the moment you stop fighting what you've been suppressing, you stop being divided. Integration is not dramatic. It's subtle. It's internal. But once it starts, it changes how you show up in every relationship, every decision, every reaction. The door you chose was only the beginning. What you do with that awareness is where the real transformation happens. If something in your result felt surprisingly accurate, or slightly uncomfortable, don't ignore that reaction. In behavioral psychology, the moments that trigger us often point directly to patterns we've normalized. The way you choose, the feelings you suppress, the roles you repeat, they're not random. They form a structure. And once you begin to see that structure clearly, your decisions start to change. That's why self-awareness isn't passive. It's practical. The more precise your understanding of your behavioral patterns, the less control they unconsciously have over you. Take a moment after this video ends to reflect on what stood out most. Not what sounded nice, but what felt true. Because insight without reflection fades quickly. But insight followed by awareness? That creates real internal shift. And this is only one layer. The more patterns you explore, the clearer your psychological map becomes. If you made it all the way to this point, that already says something about you. It means you're willing to look inward. And that kind of awareness is rare. So here's what I want you to do next. First, comment the number of the door you chose: 1, 2, 3, or 4. I want to see which pattern appears the most, and more importantly, I want you to own your choice publicly. There's power in acknowledging it. Second, if this resonated with you even slightly, press like. Not as a habit, but as a signal that this type of psychological exploration matters. It tells the algorithm to bring more depth, not just noise. And if you're interested in understanding your shadow, your behavior patterns, and the hidden dynamics shaping your relationships, subscribe now. Because this channel is entirely focused on behavioral psychology tests designed to challenge how you see yourself. Also, don't stop here. There's another test waiting for you right now on the card on your screen, and it connects directly to what you just discovered. If you want to go deeper, start there. And if you prefer to explore multiple patterns, the full shadow test playlist is organized for you. Watch in sequence. Patterns reveal themselves over time. But before you leave, comment your number. I'm curious to see which door you walked through.